We continue, still on day 10 in Zhanglei's room, where he's told by his guards that if only him, Wobble, and Tubepa are left, then they'll let him win by stepping down. But it's unclear if it would count if they just let him win like that. And that's also only a possibility if the other princes somehow exited the contest. And considering strong personalities like Siraidanik, Benjamin, and Luzrus are still in the running, it doesn't seem likely to happen anytime soon. In room 1005, Tubepa speaks with her team about how Karapika has accepted the peace offer and agreement, which seems to be in direct conflict with what he announced publicly. Mayor is also the one to convey that Karapika will only follow this contract so long as the queen and prince are there when he visits. And the third prince's soldiers also expect the same, in order to have beneficial information circulating in their parties. The third prince is Zhanglei, just in case you forgot. Tubepa has no problem with any of the demands, but mentions how she's happy to be with Wapol and the queen. This strikes Rihan since this agreement proves that they're closely working with the 14th prince, and Karapika by extension. On his side, Zhanglei has been handing out coins as instructed, but nothing seems to be coming of it. Either it's because a certain condition hasn't been met, or perhaps the right target hasn't been given the object. Despite that, Zhang continues to tell those he hands them to that it brings luck. He mentions that the effect is supposed to trigger on the 10th day, but then wonders if it can't because he still has them in his possession. Tubepa is also contemplating why Siraidanik didn't attend the banquet, and if it has to do with not seeing her as a possible ally. To be honest, I feel like Siraidanik would rather make enemies of everyone. That aside, Tubepa also worries how she can get the focus off of her and onto Zhangli instead. Since Benjamin assigned Rian to watch over every move, she says to mention at Karapika's training session that her people emphasize how close they are to Zhanglei while around Benjamin's guard, and right after that she signs the agreement and a conditional ability is activated, making the guardian beast show up behind her. It's a giant frog/toad, by the way. Balsalmico, one of Benjamin's guards, takes a block from his boot and reveals a set of tools used for assassination. They ended up being discontinued since they failed in the past, but he believes that it would be perfect to take out Halkenburg. It causes stomach issues, which could make it appear as something contagious, which would mean the person would be in quarantine, and innocents would be spared from being involved. It can actually cause organ failure in half a day, so long as it's inhaled within 30 seconds of being spread through the air. Considering there's a limited time and range, that's why it fell out of use. But for the task of taking down a prince in a closed space, on a boat no less, it would be easier to create the ideal scenario. After considering all that, he's convinced that he should use it on Prince Halkenburg, putting a release mechanism in his sleeve, and the rest back in his boot. In room 1004, Siraidanik is training on the 11th day to multitask physical effort and end use. He impresses the guard, Salkov, who admits he's been using Zetsu since birth. That's a clear indicator that he's one of the children planted by Beyond, just like Long Qi. Regardless, what Siraidanik can do now is the same ability as someone who's been studying Nen for at least a year. He mentions that what took him half a year is accomplished in a day by Siraidanik. So I think it's safe to say that he's a fast learner, maybe even a Nen genius. But Salkov also begins to worry, knowing Theta warned about his behavior towards politics in Nen, how it's only to fill a desire. The fact that he can activate a Nen ability while in Zetsu makes Siraidanik an outlier, even compared to specialists. And this seems to mean that a contract with someone like Long Qi and her Zetsu effect would only help him in a way. A guard informs Siraidanik about Melody being kept in holding and how they want to extend the time. When he hears that Benjamin has assigned guards to Melody, he orders his own to make a move and keep the other prince away. Whether or not it's because he thinks that she can help him win, he wants her to be on his side. But more impressive is Siraidanik using Zetsu, walking on a treadmill, talking and using his phone at the same time. Talk about an overachiever. Zetsu gains a new mark that looks like an insect bite on her neck. Kacho insists that it wasn't there when they tried to escape, so it's new. Melody compares it to an injection mark, but it's clear from how little she was outside that it's from Nen. And as you can guess, it has conditions involved to activate whatever it's meant to do. Melody says it explains that weird, almost manic behavior Fugetsu had before, how she could endlessly open doors, when before it was only one per day. This means that not only is it meant to make Fugetsu overuse her Nen ability, but to ensure she opens multiple doors at once. Melody immediately picks up on this and wants to test out her theory, and the only way to get Fugetsu out of the mode that she's in is to show her the doors, and a trap in one of them. It's also causing addict behavior in her. From the power trip, maybe. So now, more than ever, it's necessary to stop Fugetsu from using her Nen, since she could die in a few days. Kacho's got a plan in mind, though. Jumping to con-candy-haired Luzarus. Kacho thinks it has to be him since he already shamelessly uses the families to smuggle in drugs. She's insistent that it's his guardian beast's effect, though. This brings up a couple things. The rule that princes cannot attack each other, and that the beasts don't kill each other either. But seeing as they think Luzarus isn't aware of what's going on, it wouldn't break any rules if he ends up hurting or killing Fugetsu. And Kacho was just a plan to get Luzarus' Nen Beast to stop its unintended attack. One of the things Fugetsu was doing earlier was testing the distance she could travel through her doors. But one space was off limits to her. Still, she can go to any place she's been before, but they haven't yet tested if someone else can follow through. Kacho specifies that the only restrictions involve both Kacho and Fugetsu passing through the doors, so Melody could freely go through in theory. For the plan to work, Melody knows that they need more people involved. Not only do they need to control Luzarus with her music, but someone has to keep him restrained physically, maybe even strangle him. But Kaiser thinks that's a bad idea, when it would work better for them if it looked accidental instead. So, the sussy Kaiser suggests he be used as the cover, and that he take him to be investigated. The guards will remember being put under a spell by Melody, and they'll likely be tested positive for drugs in their system, so it could be blamed on hallucinations. So here's the cover story. Luzarus was having a drug overdose, so he planned to escape on a boat, but died of a heart attack while he was leaving. The problem is, like they just said, anywhere Fugetsu wants to use her ability has to be a place she already visited. And she definitely hasn't been in Luzarus' room yet, since he barely seems to leave himself. Kaiser offers to help accompany, while Kacho finds a reason Fugetsu would have to meet with all the princes and not just Luzarus. That way she would make herself seem less suspicious. The plan is to convince all the princes that Kacho left a will behind for all of them, in case she passed away during the succession battle, which she did. But no one's currently aware of her death, except Melody and Kaiser. They're even still hiding it from Fugetsu, not to upset her. Either way, it gives them an excuse to visit all the princes at one time, to hand the letters. There's also roadblocks, like the trust issues and not wanting the justice members to see sensitive information, which Kaiser says that he can work around. He's even willing to go in by force by filing warrants if necessary. But Melody seems hesitant to trust him, considering he professed his love for her and his heart didn't even change in any way. As much as Melody doesn't want him involved, Kaiser explains that he thinks Fugetsu would be the best choice to win the succession contest and bring about change, because he believes it would allow Kacho to protect her and stay by her side. But Melody can't hear any changes in his heart still. Considering he might be manipulated by an outside force, she can't let her guard down. When he mentions wanting a peaceful world, Kaiser says that he's willing to dirty his hands for that cause if needed. As planned, the security and guards accompany Fugetsu to the prince's rooms to bring the letters. They start with the first, Benjamin, needing permission from the guards to speak with him and hand it over. They explain the details of it being a message that will be left should she die, and that it needs to be handed in person. And with Kaiser high-ranked in the Justice Department, he ensures them if there's explosives or dangerous contents in the message that's being handed in, he will take responsibility. The guard says to give it to him so that he can check, but Kaiser insists that it might be something with specific details like succession information that's not meant for everyone except the prince. So Benjamin hears that and allows it. When Fugetsu makes her way in, she's covered in dark spirits as we know, and Benjamin finds it awful to see. She offers the letter and he takes it, but his guardian spirit also attacks the lesser beings attached to Fugetsu when she approaches. He wrongfully assumes it's due to her grief at losing Kacho when she's still unaware, but also predicts that she has about 10 days left if this continues. After confirming there's nothing special in the letter, Benjamin asks about Moose and whether the Justice Department have have found him yet, and there's no point trying to check all the prince's areas because it would be wrapped up in court and trials, and thankfully he's not willing to subject everyone to martial law for it either. Also, Kaiser realizes just how dangerous Prince Benjamin is for considering using martial law on everyone to find a single person's location, which would be something used on a national level. He also made sure to choose time when Balsamico wasn't around. Speaking of which, is he gone to do the deed against Halkenburg? Tubeppa and Tyson accept the letters with no problem, and then there's one more prince to see. Lazarus himself, who barely moves to receive the letter from Fugetsu while lounging in his room. He offers her condolences at least, with Kaiser keeping straight-faced and the guards looking stern while they wait. You'll recognize one as Basho, who worked with Kurapika and Nostrade family during the York New arc. Lazarus asks whether Fugetsu knew about the letters and says that they're all different, so she wouldn't know the contents. Unlike the other princes, he believes his is related to the succession contest, so he hands it over to the Bureau, which was Kaiser's intention all along. In a flashback, Kaiser says the Justice Bureau keeps critical information in their department to avoid any conflict among the princes, and that's the kind of information he allowed to leak to Lazarus. Melody immediately wonders if it's something Cacho would know, but that's not the point. It would lead to them all being unsure and seeking out the cause of the information spreading anyway. Back in the present, the letter to Lazarus is about Cacho wanting Saraidanik as far away from the throne as possible. He wonders why her dying message would be to attack another prince rather than protecting her sister, which seems more important. But it causes enough doubt in him that he intends to keep watching the situation. With everything going smoothly, Kaiser asks Fugetsu if she needs to rest, and by means of his connection to Melody, Basho offers to help with the small spirits plaguing her, if only for a short period of time. He hands her a charm to keep them away. After doing his job, he knows that the rest is up to Melody, otherwise Fugetsu won't survive much longer. After all that talk of Lazarus being the problem, Cacho suddenly decides that they should find a plan in case it isn't his fault that Fugetsu's getting worse, and Melody can't move while using her instrument to control her targets, which requires someone like Kaiser to help with moving others. The other problem now is that Halkenburg hasn't received his letter because there was a loud noise, indicating that his guardian Nenbeast was involved, which likely led to his collapse, unless it was meant as a distraction for something else. Either way, they need to get Cacho's message to him as soon as he's awake. His letter, unlike the others, has bombshells of information regarding his family and other princes. More importantly, they mention his birth, which could be a hint at either being related to Beyond or meant as a red herring, so we think that he is. And considering this series, it would be too obvious if he ended up being Beyond's son. A lot of the fans think that it's clearly Saraidanik, which might also be too obvious because of how advanced his Nen is. Could it be someone more innocent, like Wobble, perhaps? Alas, Melody's expecting Kurapika to do the heavy lifting that's left since she's still stuck in detainment, and he's the one with the ability to sniff out lies that could cause damage to the person themselves with his chain-related Nen techniques. But can he do it without violence like she wants? We'll have to wait until next time to see. But if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.